Millionaire offers $1 million, 0 cents for one night. But the poor masseuse uncovers a secret that leaves her frozen. They say every soul has a price. But what if the most valuable thing you could offer was dignity? She had spent her life building a world no one could touch, polished, perfect, and empty. And then one day, she met a man who didn't flinch when she offered him everything. He'd smile, didn't bend. He just looked at her and said, "No." And somehow, that one word meant more than any yes she'd ever bought. Because deep down, what she really wanted wasn't to be desired. It was to be known. And maybe, just maybe, loved for who she was when no one was watching. The touch that didn't flinch. Chicago was a city of noise. The kind that never faded. Sirens in the distance, voices layered over car horns. And in the middle of it all was Elena Carter, CEO of Carter Media Group, a woman who had forgotten what silence even sounded like. She used to walk into boardrooms and change the temperature of the room. Executives once stood when she entered, now they flinched, not from fear, but from the coldness she carried like a second skin. But that morning, something cracked. She stared out the glass walls of her 57th floor office, eyes glazed over. Her assistant, Sophie, knocked gently before entering. "Another deal, another empire," Sophie said softly, placing a manila folder on the desk. "But your face says you need anything but another win." Oh. Elena didn't answer, just reached for her sunglasses and her keys. "Cancel the meeting, and tell the driver to take me somewhere no one knows my name, or I swear, Sophie, I will scream in the middle of the exchange." 20 minutes later, the car pulled up to a quiet stretch of Chicago's Chinatown. Not the tourist part, the old side, where the shops had hand-painted signs and the buildings wore age like a badge of honor. Lotus Blossom Therapy was carved into an old wooden shingle out front, with a faded lotus flower and peeling gold lettering. Inside, there was no spa music, no lavender candles, just quiet. Real quiet. The receptionist greeted her without blinking. "Full body or just upper back?" "Full," Elena replied, her voice clipped. "And I want your best. I don't care what it costs." The woman simply nodded. "Lucas is available." The room was dim and warm, like someone had thought about comfort without saying it aloud. Elena shrugged off her blazer, kicked off her heels, and lay down on the table, like someone trying not to feel. The door opened, soft footsteps. "Good afternoon," the voice said, calm. "I'm Lucas. If you're ready, we'll begin." She turned her head slightly, just enough to glimpse him. He looked young, early 30-esque, dark hair, simple uniform, eyes that didn't ask questions. His touch was clean, professional, but not mechanical. Somehow, in the stillness of his hands, she felt seen, in a way that didn't ask her to perform. At first, she said nothing, just breathed, let him work the tension out of her shoulders. But somewhere near the middle of the session, when he touched a knot below her right shoulder blade, she blurted, "How long have you been doing this?" Lucas didn't pause, long enough to know when a body needs silence. "In mine?" she asked. He didn't miss a beat. "Yours is screaming." Elena gave a small, bitter laugh. "Do you always talk to clients like that?" "Only when they ask questions they don't really want answers to." She didn't know whether to feel insulted or impressed. Afterward, she got dressed in silence. Her heels clicked on the old wood floor as she approached the front desk. "Lucas," she said casually, adjusting her coat. "Is he married?" The receptionist looked surprised. "No. Actually, rumor is he's never even been with anyone." Elena blinked. "Seriously, with hands like that?" The woman smiled. "He's had offers, rich ones, beautiful ones, never accepted. Some say he's still a, you know." Elena stepped into the street, lips parted. Not from shock, but from something else. Curiosity, and something more dangerous. Intrigue. She'd been offered every yes the world could give. But now, for the first time in years, she was consumed by the possibility of a man who might tell her no. And she wasn't sure why. But that possibility? It thrilled her. Chapter 1. The first no. The next morning, Elena Carter showed up at Lotus Blossom Spa before it even opened. She didn't know why she was there, only that sleep had refused to come. Her silk sheets felt like sandpaper, her penthouse too large, her name too heavy. Every thought that brushed her mind circled back to a man whose hands hadn't flinched, and whose eyes had held no hunger for anything she owned. Not even her. By 8:03 a.m., the receptionist arrived to find Elena already waiting on the stoop, latte in hand, heels tapping on the worn step like a ticking clock. "I want the same therapist," she said firmly. "Lucas. No substitutes?" "None." Lucas entered the room 10 minutes later. No smile, no tension either, just presence. Calm, silent, grounded. He nodded once. "Miss Carter?" "Elena," she said, eyes still closed as she lay face down. "Let's skip the formalities today." He said nothing, just placed his hands gently on her shoulders and began. And as he worked, Elena let her mouth run, half nerves, half defense. "You know," she murmured, "I thought about you last night." Lucas's hands paused for a breath, then resumed. "Hope it didn't ruin your sleep." "Didn't ruin it," she replied, lips curving, "but it complicated things." The silence again. "You're strange," she continued. "Distant, not trying to impress anyone, not even me." Lucas's voice was steady. "It's not my job to impress, it's to help. And what if I want more than help?" He didn't speak, didn't move. Then finally, "Then you'll be disappointed." Elena turned her head to look at him. He didn't meet her gaze, kept working, calmly, respectfully, with no trace of the tension he just stirred in her. It was infuriating and exhilarating. She sat up on the table, bare shoulders glowing under the warm light. "Let's go out. Tonight. Dinner. Nothing formal." "No." She blinked. "No?" "No," he said again, calm, no hesitation. "You're turning me down?" "Yes." Elena narrowed her eyes. "Why?" "Because I'm not interested." That word, "not interested," landed like a slap. She stood, wrapped the robe tighter around her and stared him down. "Everyone has a price, Lucas." He looked her in the eyes for the first time. "Not me." Her pulse spiked, a strange heat crawled into her chest. And then, quietly, she reached into her blazer and pulled out an envelope. "A mango penifu?" Opened it, slid it forward. "Dome night," she said. "One hotel. No cameras, no press, no future. Just desire." She stood and tucked the envelope into the front pocket of his uniform. $1 million. Lucas stepped back, looked at the envelope, then at her. "I don't need to think about it." He gently took the envelope from his pocket and placed it on the wooden side table beside him. "It's still no." Elena stood frozen, her heart pounding, her pride flaring like an open flame. "You're turning down $1 million?" "I'm turning down the idea of selling myself." She laughed. Sharp, defensive. "You work for tips." "I work because I choose to." She stepped closer, voice low. $2 million. "No. 5. And $10 million, Lucas." Silence. He looked into her face. "You really think I'd say yes just because you offered more?" Elena clenched her jaw. "Everyone does." "I don't." Her voice trembled. "Are you making a fool of me?" "No. I'm just the first person who told you no, and you don't know how to handle that." That was when she slapped him. Not hard, not violent, but as if to shake off something clinging to her. Lucas didn't flinch. He didn't move at all, and somehow that made it worse. Elena stepped back, breath shallow. "You'll regret this," she said. "You'll wonder your whole life what it would have been like to know me." Lucas said nothing. In that silence, it followed her all the way back to the penthouse. But it wasn't the silence that haunted her. It was the feeling that maybe, just maybe, she had finally met a man whose soul was not for sale. And she didn't know whether to destroy him or fall for him. Chapter 2. When the Internet Saw. Elena Carter had been many things in her life. Prodigy, headline, daughter of a senator, CEO by 30. But humiliated? Never. Not until a massage therapist said no. And now, everyone knew. The video was just 13 seconds. But that was all it needed to destroy her. Someone, a client, a receptionist, maybe even a random delivery guy, had filmed the moment Elena stormed out of the spa. The envelope, the glare, her voice rising, Lucas standing still like a statue while she cracked apart in public. The caption on the post? CEO tries to buy Masseuse, he says no, she loses it. By noon it had 72,000 likes. By 3, it was on TikTok. By 6, it was in the hands of a gossip blogger who recognized her instantly. Elena Carter offers stranger $1.00 M for one night, gets rejected, and goes viral. Sophie stood in the corner of the office with her tablet clutched to her chest. I tried to suppress it, flagged it on every platform. No luck. Then try harder, Elena snapped, pacing across the glass floor of her office, heels clicking like gunfire. They're reposting faster than we can take them down, Sophie said. And your name's trending, in a bad way. Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, reaction videos, Reddit threads. One guy already made a parody. Elena rubbed her temples. A parody of what? Of you, saying $10 million like a game show host. She didn't respond. Couldn't. Her own voice echoed in her head, the way it had sounded in that room. Sharp, condescending, desperate. 10 million, Lucas. The worst part? It hadn't even worked. He hadn't even blinked. And now the world was laughing. She barely slept that night, pacing her penthouse, looking out at the skyline that once felt like hers. Now it looked like a wall she couldn't climb over. At 3:17 a.m., her phone buzzed with a notification. Force. What happens when a billionaire CEO is told no in public? She threw the phone across the couch. By morning, clients had already started to pull out of pending partnerships. Brand reps were requesting distance, and investors, silent. Not because they believed she'd done something criminal, but because she'd lost the one thing more fragile than power: mystique. Sophie knocked gently. Lucas Whitmore, he still hasn't made any public statement, not a word, no interviews, not even a tweet. Elena's eyes narrowed. He's quiet on purpose. Sophie hesitated. Should we issue a press statement? Spin this? Blame editing? Deepfake? No, Elena said slowly. Don't fight it. You just going to let it go? No, she repeated, turning toward the window, the city reflecting in her eyes. I'm going to learn everything about him. She crossed to her desk, pulled out a business card, flipped it over, dialed. A woman's voice answered, sharp, efficient. Blackline Investigations. I want your best private investigator, Elena said. The most discreet. Unlimited budget. Name? Elena Carter. I want everything on a man named Lucas Whitmore. No detail too small. A pause. Reason for the search? Elena glanced down at her trembling hands. Because he said no. That night, while the internet laughed and the city scrolled, Elena didn't laugh. She stared at her reflection in the dark window of her penthouse. For the first time in her life, she wasn't the one writing the story. She was the punchline. And the man who caused it still hadn't said a word. Because he didn't need to. His silence was louder than anything she could afford. Digging into silence. Power had always been Elena Carter's language. But Lucas Whitmore? He was fluent in something else. Vanishing. I don't understand, Elena said, voice low and tight as she sat across from the lead investigator at Blackline. The man, gray suit, gray beard, gray morality, handed her a file. 3 pages. 3. For a man who had caused a viral media storm, there was nothing to him. No social media, no LinkedIn, no alumni record, no police reports, not even a driver's license renewal in the last 2 years. He's a ghost, the investigator said, flipping through the thin stack. Worked at Lotus Blossom Spa for just under 2 years. Lives in a walk-up near Pilsen. No credit cards, pays rent in cash. Phones prepaid, no car. What about family? Elena asked. No record of immediate relatives in the US. He lists his emergency contact as R. Hale, presumably Raymond Hale, the spa owner. Does he have a criminal record? Not even a parking ticket. Elena leaned back in her chair. What about before Chicago? The man hesitated. That's where it gets strange. Strange how? Between the ages of 23 and 27, he disappears. No work history, no address, no enrollment. He just goes dark. Elena frowned. That's not possible. No one just disappears. The investigator raised an eyebrow. Unless they want to. That night, she stared at the 3 pages on her marble kitchen island. They weren't a file. They were a void, which, in her world, was louder than noise. She tapped the corner of the final page, staring at the tiny black and white photo from his ID badge. He looked younger there. Still, watching the camera like it might steal something. A man with a wall behind his eyes. And Elena, who had built empires from other people's weaknesses, couldn't find a single crack. It was unbearable. The next day, she drove to the address listed in the file. A narrow brick building with an iron gate and a chipped 304 nailed to the front. She climbed 3 flights, heels echoing in the stairwell, and knocked on his door. No answer. She knocked again. Still nothing. She tried the doorknob. It was locked. Then, without thinking, she crouched and peered through the mail slot. Nothing. No furniture, no art, no shoes by the door. Lucas Whitmore had packed up and vanished. She returned to her car, sat behind the wheel, and screamed. Not from heartbreak. From something worse. Obsession without an outlet. She had been rejected before. Deals, men, mentors. But those had reasons. Lucas didn't give her one. And that silence had teeth. At night, Sophie tiptoed into her office and said softly, "You've been trending for 4 days straight." "I don't care," Elena whispered. "You canceled all your meetings." "I said I don't care." Sophie placed a small velvet box on the desk. "What's that?" "You were supposed to wear it to the gala this weekend. It arrived today. A gift from Cartier." Elena opened the box. A necklace, diamonds like glass raindrops. She stared at it a long time before saying, "Return it." "Play why?" Elena closed the lid with a snap. "Because I finally met something money can't touch." Sophie lingered. "Elena, what? Are you okay?" Elena looked up, eyes cold but aching. "Yeah. But for the first time in a decade, I think I'm real." Chapter 4, The Man from Nowhere. The spa smelled like peppermint and warm linen, but Elena Carter didn't notice. She was already halfway to the front desk, designer heels echoing against the polished wood. "I need to speak with him," she said, voice razor-sharp. Marissa, the young receptionist, blinked. "With who?" "Elena Carter," she snapped. "Lucas Whitmore, now." Marissa hesitated. "He's not here today." "Then I'll wait." She dropped her designer handbag onto the waiting bench like she owned the place. Because, in her world, waiting was a demand, not a request. 2 hours later, he walked through the door. Same uniform, same steady eyes, same maddening calm. Only this time, Elena didn't speak right away. She stood, her voice came out low, urgent. Lucas tilted his head. "Good morning. I need an explanation." He didn't break stride, heading behind the front desk. "For what?" "For disappearing, for ignoring me, for acting like I'm nothing." "You're not nothing," he said simply. "You're just not owed anything." That one stung. Elena pressed forward. "Look, I get it," she said. "You're noble, you're mysterious, but you don't get to walk away like I didn't offer you. Money?" He turned toward her then, finally, his gaze direct. "You offered me power. You offered me escape. You offered me your version of intimacy, dressed in conditions and currency." She folded her arms. "And you chose to work in a place that smells like wet towels and peppermint oil instead?" Lucas shrugged. "At least here, I know who I am." Elena's temper snapped. "You're a massage therapist with a god complex. That's what you are." Lucas didn't flinch. "And you're a CEO who can't stand hearing no." Silence. Marisa stood frozen behind the desk, pretending to organize appointment cards that didn't exist. Elena pulled an envelope from her purse. Another one? Dika. $2 million, 0 cents, she said. Cash, no strings. One night. Lucas didn't move. She stepped closer. 5. His jaw didn't tighten. He placed it on the counter. 10. A beat of silence. Then, you really think the price was ever the problem? Then what is it? Lucas stared at her. Not with judgment, but something worse. Recognition. You don't want me, he said quietly. You want to buy the one thing that scares you. Elena blinked. Which is? A man who sees the real you and doesn't flinch. She froze, like someone had turned all the sound off in the world. And then she did what she always did when cornered. She threatened to destroy him. I'll triple your salary to have you fired, she said to Marisa, without looking away from Lucas. Right now. Lucas chuckled under his breath. Go ahead. Marisa, Elena said louder. Marisa looked like she wanted to crawl into the potted plant beside her. I have to ask the owner. Elena slammed her palm against the counter. Then call him. She did. Put it on speaker. A pause. Then a soft, older voice answered. Yes? Sir, Marisa said nervously. Miss Carter is here. She's requesting to fire Lucas. She's offering a lot. A longer pause. Then, tell Miss Carter that if she wants to fire Lucas, she'll need to buy the entire spa. Click. Silence. Elena's mouth parted, but no words came out. Lucas leaned against the counter, casual as sunrise. I'm not just some guy you can replace. Elena's voice cracked. Who are you? Lucas stared at her a long moment. Then, softly, someone who used to be everything, and chose to be less. Because power wasn't save me. It broke me. He walked away, disappearing into the back hallway. Elena didn't follow. For once in her life, she didn't know how. Chapter 5. The Picture. The envelope slid across Elena Carter's desk like a loaded gun. Then, labeled confidential in block letters. Inside it were 5 photos, a few blurry documents, and one image that made her blood run cold. Lucas, wearing a black tuxedo, standing beside an older man in front of a marble building with Chinese lettering above the door. The caption in her investigator's handwriting. Lucas Whitmore, aka Lucas Hale, witness in sealed federal investigation, Shanghai. 3 years ago, Elena stared at the photo for a long time. Lucas wasn't working. He wasn't observing. He was at the center. And he looked different, not guarded or silent, but in charge. Her phone rang. It was Sophie. Elena, she whispered, you need to come downstairs. I'm busy. There's someone here to see you. Them sent them. It's the spa owner. Mr. Hale? That got her attention. 2 minutes later, she was face to face with a man in his 60s. Compact frame, kind eyes, wore corduroy like it was a badge of honor. He extended a hand. I'm Raymond Hale. You know me as Chen from your report. I own Lotus Blossom Therapy. I know who you are, Elena said flatly. Why are you here? Because Lucas isn't going to tell you the truth. And you're not the kind of woman who lets go without one. They sat in her office. He refused water, refused a chair until she did first. Showed up on my doorstep 3 years ago, Raymond began. Shoes falling apart, no ID, no last name he'd admit to. And you just let him in? Raymond smiled. Not at first. I offered him a sandwich. He insisted on working for it. Spent 4 hours scrubbing tile in the back. Then asked for another shift the next day. And he gave it to him because he wasn't like other runaways. He wasn't scared. He was haunted. And not by what he did, but by what he couldn't undo. Elena held up the photo. What is this? Raymond's smile faded. That's the day he left everything behind. Raymond told the story slowly. Lucas was born Lucas Jang Whitmore, son of Harold Whitmore, founder of Whitmore Global, a $4.20 B empire based in Hong Kong, Shanghai, and New York. Construction, tech, political, contracts. Lucas was the heir, Ivy League degrees, fluent in Mandarin, Korean, French, groomed since childhood to wear suits in silence like second skin. But when he turned 25, he found out something. That the empire he was meant to inherit had been built on lies. Bribery, slave-age contracts overseas, illegal political donations. When Lucas confronted his father, he wasn't met with reform. He was met with resistance. "Don't be naive," his father told him. "This is the cost of power." Lucas's younger brother Daniel was deeper in it than anyone knew. And 3 months after Lucas tried to blow the whistle, Daniel drove off a highway in Bangkok. The autopsy said suicide. Lucas said it was pressure. His father blamed him. So Lucas ran. Not from the crime, but from the man he would have become if he'd stayed. "I gave him a place to rebuild," Raymond finished. "Taught him Eastern therapy, made him use his hands to heal instead of harm." Elena sat frozen. The truth was more than scandal. It was grief, raw and unfinished. Raymond stood. "You want to know why he said no to your offer?" "I think I'm starting to." "Wasn't saying no to you, Elena. He was saying no to the world he used to belong to. The one that killed his brother." She looked up. Her voice almost broke. "And now?" Raymond smiled softly. "Now, he's not afraid of who he used to be. He's afraid of who he might be if he lets himself fall for someone who belongs to that world." Raymond headed for the door. "But if you're willing to meet him in his world," he looked back over his shoulder, "then maybe he's worth falling for." Elena didn't sleep that night. Not from anger, not from pride, but from something entirely new. Understanding. Chapter 6. What happened in Bangkok. Elena Carter waited outside Hyatt Regency Chicago, heart pounding, fingers curled around the folder that now held everything she knew. Lucas was already inside. Dressed in charcoal gray, he stood by the tall glass windows, staring at the city below like it was some ancient war he'd once fought and lost. When he turned, his eyes didn't flicker with surprise. "You found out," he said quietly. She didn't answer, just nodded. Lucas walked past the waiting chairs, into the conference room he had booked under a fake name. A place quiet enough for confessions. They sat across from each other, no table between them, just space. "I need to ask you," Elena began, "about Bangkok." Lucas didn't flinch. "I figured. Was it suicide?" His breath left him slowly. "Yes." She waited, but he didn't elaborate. So she leaned forward, voice softer. "Then why does it still feel like you blame yourself?" Lucas's jaw clenched. His gaze dropped to his hands. Hands that once knew the weight of privilege and now knew how to ease pain instead of inflict it. "Because I said the words," he whispered. "I said, you're a coward, and I'm not going to cover for you anymore." He looked up. "That was the last thing I ever told my brother." Elena's heart split open. Lucas went on. He was handling a $50 million 0-cents project in Bangkok, undercutting regulations, overcharging local governments, cutting corners on structural codes. "I found out. You tried to stop him." "I flew there, confronted him at a hotel bar, told him if he didn't cancel the contracts I'd go to the international board, that I'd expose it all, even if it meant ruining the family name." A long pause. Hell laughed, told me I was weak, that he was finally getting what I was too scared to take. Another pause. And the next morning, his car went off a bridge. Elena reached out, slowly, but Lucas didn't take her hand. "I thought I was doing the right thing," he said. "But when I saw him in the hospital morgue, I realized something." Well, but sometimes the truth doesn't set you free. Sometimes it just leaves you alone. Elena's voice cracked. "Is that why you became who you are now?" Lucas nodded. "I wanted to disappear, strip away every title, every inheritance, every expectation. I found Raymond. He didn't ask questions. He taught me how to use my hands again, not to sign papers or command rooms, but to listen." He looked at her now, more open than she'd ever seen. "Do you still think I was crazy to turn you down?" She shook her head, slowly. "No, I think you were the only sane person in the room." Lucas leaned back, hands folded in his lap. "I'm not the man you think I am, Elena." "Then tell me who you are." "I'm someone who's terrified that if he lets someone in again, he'll fail them too." "You haven't failed me." "Not yet." She reached for him again, and this time he let her. Fingers laced, the silence thick. "You said your world broke you," she whispered. "But maybe it also made you strong enough to say no. And maybe that's the only kind of strength worth trusting." He looked at her, really looked. And for the first time, something shifted in his expression. Not surrender, but hope. Chapter 7. The Interpreter. Elena Carter had stepped into a business meeting without full control since she was 25. But today, as she entered the grand conference room of the Hyatt Regency, flanked by million-dollar contracts and high-stakes expectations, she felt something strange. She wasn't the most powerful person in the room. Lucas was, and he didn't even look like he knew it. He stood beside her in a dark navy suit, no name tag, no title. Just a calm presence with a memory that held 6 languages and a past he hadn't spoken of until yesterday. The Korean investors arrived early. 3 men in tailored suits, their expressions polite, unreadable. Elena stepped forward. "Gentlemen, thank you for meeting with us." They bowed slightly. Their leader, Mr. Kim, spoke in soft Korean. Lucas replied instantly, fluid, graceful, like the language belonged to his body. Elena watched, stunned. "Was that perfect?" she whispered. Lucas didn't look at her. "Fluent, not perfect." She smiled. "Still better than Google Translate." The meeting began. PowerPoint slides, financial forecasts, projected revenue charts. Elena talked numbers. Lucas translated rhythm. When her phrasing landed too aggressively, he softened it. When their questions came loaded with cultural nuance, he decoded it before it landed in her lap. And when the youngest investor challenged her environmental impact plan, Lucas didn't flinch. He offered a suggestion on her behalf, one she hadn't thought of. And it worked. During the coffee break, Elena pulled him aside. "You just saved a $15 million 0-cents deal," she whispered. Lucas sipped quietly. "You did the talking." "No," she said. "I talked. You made them listen." He looked at her, eyes serious. "Are you sure you want to be seen with me, after everything?" Elena reached for his sleeve, smoothed a crease that wasn't there. "I think the man who said no to me in a massage room just helped me build a new empire." Lucas stared at her hand on his arm and didn't pull away. Back in the room, the tone had changed. The investors smiled more, asked about timelines, shared nods. One even offered a toast in Korean. Lucas translated it softly, to building bridges, not just contracts. Elena raised her glass of sparkling water. After they left, silence returned to the boardroom. Lucas looked tired, but alive in a way she hadn't seen before. Elena leaned against the table. "You still think you don't belong in this world?" He gave a half smile. "I don't belong in the part that destroys people, but maybe I can stand in the part that builds." "You were born to do this." "No, I was born to learn how to say no so I could finally say yes to the right things." Elena crossed her arms. "And if I offered you a job right now?" "Guess what?" "Consultant, interpreter, bridge builder, partner." He tilted his head. "In business?" She smiled. "In everything." Lucas didn't answer, but his eyes did. Chapter 8. The One Who Vanished. 3 days. That's how long it took for everything to fall silent again. No calls, no texts, no trace. Lucas Whitmore was gone. Just like last time, Elena Carter sat at her kitchen island, replaying their last conversation over and over. Partner. In everything. She'd meant it. God, she had meant every word. For once, it hadn't been a strategy, no leverage, no conditions. Just an open door. And still, he left. No note, no warning, only one voicemail from the spa receptionist. Called early Monday, said he needed a few days, might not come back. The words carved a hollow space in her chest. Might not come back. By Tuesday, Elena wasn't angry. She was haunted. Because this time, it wasn't rejection that hurt. It was hope being pulled away. Right when she'd dared to believe in something without a contract attached. Her mind spiraled with possibilities. Was he ashamed? Was he scared? Or worse, was she just another reminder of the world he ran from? Wednesday morning, she arrived at the spa unannounced. "Marisa," she said, calm but firm, "where does he live?" The girl blinked. "I told you, he moved out." Elena stepped closer. "Then give me the address he used to have." "I don't think I should." "I'm not asking as a CEO. I'm asking as someone who's trying to fix what she broke." Marisa hesitated, then scribbled something on a scrap of paper. Elena drove straight there. The door to apartment 304 was unlocked. Not kicked in. Not left ajar. Just unlatched, as if waiting. She pushed it open. The air inside was hollow, like it hadn't been breathed in days. The apartment was empty. No bed, no dishes, no notes, no scent, just silence and shadows. A space that once held a man trying to forget the world, and now held nothing at all. Elena stepped inside and sank to the floor. And cried. Not because she had been left, but because she understood why. When she returned to her penthouse, there was an envelope waiting at her door. No name, just her initials, EC. Inside, one sheet of paper. "When you trust the silence, I'll come back. Lucas." She crushed the note in her hand, heart pounding. Then, without meaning to, she smoothed it out. Read it again. "When you trust the silence." It wasn't a goodbye. It was a test. That night, her ex-fiancé Brandon Evans called. She didn't answer. The next morning, he showed up in her office. "You know he's not who you think he is, right?" he said, sliding a folder across her desk. Inside were articles in Mandarin. Photos, obituaries, a headline. Whitmore heir dead in Bangkok, car crash. Brother missing, presumed mentally unstable. Brandon leaned forward, voice low. "You really want to build a future with a ghost?" Elena looked down at the folder and then out the window at the city Lucas once belonged to. Her voice was quiet. "I'd rather build one with a man who had the courage to walk away." Brandon smirked. "Even if he walked away from you?" She stared back. "No," she said, "especially because he walked away from me." Brandon laughed bitterly and left, leaving only the silence behind. And this time, she trusted it. Chapter 9. The Son Who Said No. The Parker Group boardroom had never been so quiet. Not during a crisis. Not during a merger. Not even during a hostile acquisition. But today, every seat was filled with tension. The company was crumbling. After the viral video, the stock dropped. After Lucas vanished, the whispers began. After someone leaked client data and Elena refused to sell, a representative from Whitmore International Holdings walked in. Not just to buy the company, but to take it. And behind him, dressed in charcoal and winter silence, came Harold Whitmore. Elena stood when he entered, not out of respect, but out of instinct. He was the kind of man who had never once been told no without retaliation. And until now. "Ms. Carter," Harold said, his voice like crushed velvet over broken glass. "Let's talk about the future of your company. I'm not selling. You don't have a choice." "Yes, I do." The older man's smile didn't reach his eyes. "You think love will save this? That my son will come back and rescue you?" And then, like something out of a dream, he did. The door opened. Every head turned. Lucas Whitmore stepped into the room. In a suit. In silence. And in power. Harold stood. The tension that crackled between them wasn't business. It was blood. "Lucas," he said, voice softening like it might be a trap. "You look older," Lucas said. "And you look misguided." Lucas stepped forward and laid a folder on the table. "I've reinstated my identity, unsealed the inheritance. I'm offering to buy Parker Group 20% above its peak valuation." "You don't have the right," Harold snapped. I do now, Lucas replied. I'm still legally a 40% shareholder in Whitmore Holdings. Unless you want me to make that public. Murmurs swept across the room. Harold's mask cracked, just for a moment. You would destroy your own name? I already did, Lucas said, when I walked away. What I'm doing now is the only thing I've ever been proud of. He turned to Elena. She hadn't moved. She just stared at him, like she couldn't breathe. Lucas looked at the board. Elena stays on as CEO. I'm not here to take over. I'm here to protect the only thing worth rebuilding. Harold laughed coldly. You're doing this for her? For what? Some modern Cinderella fantasy? No, Lucas said softly. I'm doing this because she's the first person who saw the man I became, not the one you raised. He faced his father directly now. And because I'm tired of running. The boardroom fell into stunned silence. Harold's face darkened. If you do this, he said, if you cross me in public. I'm not crossing you, Lucas interrupted. I'm walking away, again. Only this time, I'm not disappearing. He stepped beside Elena. She took her hand. And for the first time in front of an audience, he didn't let go. Harold's voice shook. This is a mistake. Lucas smiled. The mistake was thinking I'd stay silent forever. He turned to the board. I'll match the buyout price. Elena keeps full control. I walk away from the empire. Again. But I do it my way. And just like that, the vote was cast. The buyout rejected. Parker Group remained Elena's. And Lucas? Lucas didn't lose her. This time, he fought. And won. That night, as they walked along the river outside the building where everything had nearly collapsed, Elena looked at him under the streetlight. You really came back? Lucas squeezed her hand. Only because this time I knew what I wanted. And what's that? He smiled. Yeah. Chapter 10. The ring that wasn't bought. The beach in Outer Banks, North Carolina, didn't care about boardrooms or billions. It only knew waves. And on a warm fall morning, it knew the sound of a woman laughing in bare feet, her veil caught in the wind, as a man she loved gently steadied her hand. No paparazzi, no media, no press release, just a few chairs, a sun-worn arch draped in white cotton, and the man who once refused $10 million 0 cents, now offering something far more rare. A vow. Lucas Whitmore, the officiant said as the wind stirred the waves, Do you take Elena Carter? I do, he said, before the question finished. Elena smiled, already tearing up. You didn't even let her finish, she whispered. I've waited 3 years to say yes to something that mattered. When it was her turn, Elena held his hands in both of hers, the same way she once gripped glass office tables and million-dollar contracts. But today, she wasn't negotiating. She was surrendering. I used to think love was about being chosen, she said softly. Then I met you. A man who chose silence over spectacle, dignity over power, healing over winning. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a thin silver band. No diamonds, no headlines, just something real. This ring didn't come from a vault, she said. It came from my mother's bedside drawer. It's not worth anything to anyone else. But it's everything to me. Lucas's voice cracked. Then it's the only thing I'll ever wear. After the kiss, quiet, deep and slow like a secret, they sat in the sand. Elena's heels were off. Lucas's blazer was tossed onto the chair behind them. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. I don't ever want to forget what it felt like to be nobody, he said. Then don't, she whispered. Just remember what it feels like to be known. That night they returned to a modest beach house, gifted by Raymond, who'd cooked dinner and left candles glowing in the windows. In the center of the garden stood a young cherry tree, barely rooted, leaves still shot. There was a note tied around the trunk, for shade and blossoms, from a father learning how to let go. Lucas read it twice, jaw tight. Then smiled. None of the apology, but in the beginning. Later, as the stars spread out over the ocean, Lucas laid beside Elena, his hands tracing the shape of her fingers. Ever think about what would have happened if I said yes that day? To the money? He nodded. I don't think I would have loved you, she whispered. Lucas blinked. Because I never wanted to own you, Lucas. I just didn't know what it meant to belong to someone. He kissed her palm, slow and reverent. You do now? Yes, she breathed. And let me say it back, he whispered. And he did. Not in words, but in every touch, the hands that heal. They never became the power couple people expected. There were no magazine covers, no red carpets, no tech empires. Lucas Whitmore, or Lucas Hale depending on the paperwork, never returned to the boardroom. But every Thursday night he volunteered at a local clinic, helping veterans with pain they couldn't quite name. And every morning, before work, Elena Carter kissed him goodbye with the kind of silence only two people who truly knew each other could share. Their love didn't come with fire. It came with choice. Daily, quiet, unshakable choice. The kind of love that doesn't announce itself. It simply stays. One night, Elena found an old envelope in a drawer. Her original offer, $1 million. 0 cents for one night. Still sealed. Lucas had never opened it. She laughed. I never even paid you for the massage. He looked at her across the kitchen counter, holding a mug of black coffee, barefoot and whole. You did, he said. Yeah. You let me be the one person who wasn't for sale. In the spring, the cherry tree in their garden bloomed. Soft white petals fluttered like small forgivenesses. Lucas sometimes sat beneath it and traced his mother's initials into the dirt with his finger. And once, only once, Elena caught him whispering to the wind. She didn't interrupt. Some healing happens best when no one is watching. So what is love, really? Maybe it's not the moment you say yes. Maybe it's the moment you say no to everything that used to define you. Just to say yes to someone who sees you. Not the titles. Not the wounds. Just you. And maybe, if you're lucky, they'll see the person you're still becoming and choose to stay anyway. If this story touched something quiet in you, tell us. What's one thing you've said no to so you could say yes to something real? We'd love to read your reflections below. And if this reminded you of someone, send it to them. Maybe it's time they heard. You are enough, even when you're not for sale.